It's Mrs. Brace. Welcome to your very first math lesson of this new online world that we're all currently living in. By now you should have watched the video of Mr. Walker explaining your new proficiency scale for volume. Okay, so most of you have worked with our daily math and our daily language, and so with our daily math we've seen volume quite a bit. And you've also kind of seen volume a little bit with when we did measurement and data, when we were doing metric and customary units, because volume is similar to capacity, right? And so we've kind of looked at that a little bit, but we're going to learn how to measure volume. And before we can do that, we're going to learn a few little vocab words and some different concepts that will help us understand what volume is. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here and take a look. Most of you have seen little Sparky, right? Poor Sparky, he kind of struggles, but we're going to help him out a little bit. Okay? All right. So unfortunately for Sparky, we're not talking about a loudness lesson. We're not turning down the volume. That's not what this volume means. So Sparky wants to know, well, what other kind of volume are we talking about then? You know how some objects are one-dimensional, like lines? And I know in my class, we've talked a lot about one dimension, two dimension, three dimension. And when we have to make sure that we're labeling our measurements correctly, sometimes we have to put our dimensions as a square or as a cube. Okay, so this kind of goes along with that. Remember, if something is one-dimensional, it only has one way to be measured. So the only way that we can measure this line is by using length, right? We would get out a ruler, we'd measure how long it is. There's nothing else to measure there. So it's only one-dimensional. It only has one dimension, one thing to measure. Okay, so Sparky's like, okay, I kind of got this. Okay, and then if something is two-dimensional, they're going to have two different dimensions. So with two-dimensional, we're going to be talking about length and width. So we're going to be able to measure how long something is and how wide something is, but it's not going to have any depth to it. It's just a flat, so in this case, like a flat piece of paper. Or in this case, poor Sparky's really bad math quiz. So you can see here that this is two-dimensional because it has two things to be measured, two dimensions, has a length, and it also has a width. Okay, and poor Sparky, he's like, I can totally explain about this quiz. He must have been having a bad day. We all have those days, don't we? It's okay. Okay, thank goodness we're done with adding and subtracting fractions, right? Well, we're not quite done with them, but we're close. All right, so let's get into a three-dimensional object, okay? So one-dimensional shape only has one dimension to measure. A two-dimensional is probably something flat, but it might have a length and a width. However, a three-dimensional object is going to have three ways to measure, three parts of measurement, which is a length, a width, and a height. So it's going to have depth to it. It might be able to hold something. So in this case, this rectangular prism has length, width, and it also has the height. Okay, we've got three, therefore it is three-dimensional. Okay, so three-dimensional objects have what we call volume. We've also called it capacity with measurement, how much something can hold. Volume is how much space an object takes up. Okay, so we'll look at that, the amount of space an object takes up. So one way to measure with volume is by using unit cubes, okay? And most of the volume that we've seen in our morning math has been using unit cubes, okay? So we can use those. That's going to just be, it's kind of like a unit of measure, kind of like feet and inches and those types of things, but we call it a unit cube, okay? A unit cubes have all side lengths of one unit and are used to measure volume. So in the United States, volume is often measured using, do you see this unit cube? All sides measure 1 inch or 1 centimeter or 1, whatever your unit of measure is, it's all the same. Okay, it's all 1. So cubic inches, cubic feet, do you see how all the sides are the same? Length, width, and height are all the same. Cubic yards, length, width, height are all the same. Okay, so pay attention to the way that this is labeled. Not only do we have the unit of measure here, we have inches, feet, yards, but we also have that little 3, which looks like a little exponent, right? And that little 3 is telling us that it is cubed, which means it's 3-dimensional, which means that it has volume, okay? So inches cubed, that's usually what we call it. Inches cubed, inches squared if it was 2-dimensional. And then if it was just a line, like 1 dimension, we wouldn't even have that little exponent there. Okay, so that's how we're going to measure those volume with unit cubes or cubic inches, cubic feet, whatever you want to call it. Okay, but remember your label should always have the little 3 exponent because that means it's 3-dimensional. That's what that tells us. Okay, in the metric system, all of these kind of go along with customary, but in the metric system, we were talking about centimeters, meters, okay, any of those types of things that would still be cubed, okay?